Over 8 decades have passed since the end of the Second World War. From the Allies, there are many examples of wartime art, yet we often forget that there's also art from the other side. In Italy, you can find examples in the magazine L'Aquilone. That name translates to kite, not the kind you fly on a string, but rather the type of bird that's similar to a hawk. It was an airplane model building magazine popular among Italian teenagers in the 1930s and 1940s. The pages of those old magazines remind us of what Italy once was, a fascist nation under Mussolini. Obviously, though, L'Aquilone's readers were too young to be that interested in politics. What mattered to them was flying. Based on the designs they found in each of the magazines, they built model airplanes and dreamed of one day becoming pilots. Meanwhile, the news of the day was filled with propaganda about Mussolini's dreams of a greater Italy. Not long after, the Second World War broke out and the Italian Air Force joined the conflict. Most people in Europe thought that the Axis powers would win. Likewise, the Italian people had been told that the war would be a fast one, similar to what Germany had accomplished in France a year earlier. Instead, however, the war dragged on. Family members were lost, cities were bombed, and the Italian military was losing on almost every front. By the beginning of 1941, a different picture was emerging. The government tried to cover up the losses, but the news didn't align with the stark reality of what Italy actually faced. The pride of the Italian Navy had been lost at Taranto. The battles in North Africa had cost many lives. Many of Italy's finest pilots died in the campaigns in Greece. The tide was turning steadily in favor of the Allies. There would be no victory to come. Through it all, L'Aquilone kept publishing. The subjects shifted from beautiful images of airplanes flying over the landscapes of Italy to scenes of aerial combat. Naturally, the government decreed that Italian planes couldn't be shown being shot down. Most readers knew better, however. The scenes in the magazine weren't very accurate. Today, most of the battles that Italy fought during the Second World War are not popular topics of study among historians. Very few in the public know about Italy's campaigns in Greece and Albania. Others are surprised to learn that Italy attacked the city of Haifa in Israel, though then it was known as the British Mandate in Palestine. While some know that the Italian Air Force sent its pilots to fly in the Battle of Britain, very few know about what the actual outcome was. The art in the magazine showed that Italy was always victorious. 8 decades later, we can approach the topic as a matter of history. The Italians always designed some of the most beautiful airplanes in the world. That comes through in the magazine as well. The pages of L'Aquilone included many examples of scale plans for model airplanes. The readers built those at home and flew them in their backyards or down in the town square. The models were built of balsa wood and tissue paper, and they featured hand-fashioned, carefully carved propellers. Many were of the classic designs favored in that era, and I suspect that most of those haven't been looked at much since, nor built. There's something undeniably Italian in the lines of those planes. As well, the magazine featured cutaway drawings of the warplanes of the day. The interiors weren't always accurate. Guesswork was involved, though it was educated guesswork. The drawings were still beautiful, though. The most impressive artworks, however, were found on the magazine's back cover. Each issue featured a full page of color artwork. Action was always shown, usually with a small headline that told one of the official sanctioned versions of the news. One of our BA-65 fighters attacks at low altitude against an enemy convoy. War in the skies above the Arctic Circle. A Blackburn Skua is attacked by an Italian saetta. There were many more. The magazine also featured artwork of some of Italy's latest aircraft designs. The first Italian jet plane, the Caproni Campini N1. The Italian tourist plane in a canard configuration, known as the SCA SS3. And there were many other examples. The magazine is like a time capsule that shows us Italy's air power as it was during the early 1940s. By 1943, however, the war was lost. Mussolini was overthrown, and the Allies were steadily advancing north through the mountains in a pitched battle against the Germans. The Italian army and air force were defeated, and the magazine stopped publishing. The images shown here were collected by Paolo Borgonovi, an Italian from Venice who has been following aviation for a long time. He knew of L'Aquilone from his youth. Over the years, he has collected many copies of the old magazine. He was raised in the 1950s in post-war Italy and was, from early on, a modeler and an aviation enthusiast. Later on, he became a documentary filmmaker, but he never forgot his first passion, which was airplanes. L'Aquilone was a product of its times. There's an important lesson there, too. Fascism thrives on disinformation and mass media. Mussolini's vision of a greater Italy affected everything, right down to airplane model-making magazines for the youth. 80 years later, we can look back on the horrors of the war and consider how it's possible that a country like Italy, which had boasted centuries of art and culture, had fallen to such a low point. But that's fascism. Even art is repurposed. I think the artists who created those paintings are blameless. We can remember them and their work, even as we put Mussolini and his vision of a fascist Italy in the trash can of history. I wonder if we will one day say the same about Russia and its invasion of Ukraine. Will there even be any art to look back on when the war ends? I suspect not. Putin has stripped Russia of everything that it once was. The mission of an artist today is to be sent to the front lines, not to paint what they see, but to carry a gun and to die. That's fascism. I'm Thomas Van Hare, and this is Historic Wings. Please click like, and please subscribe. And remember, there's always more to the story.